So, dear participants, my fellow panelists, it is a pleasure to welcome you in today's discussion, focusing on bank and tech. Our age is marked by technological advancements, and hopefully our chat today will highlight some of the challenges and opportunities and explore how banking and technology are converging, how traditional banks are adapting, and how fintech firms are bridging the gaps left by traditional financial institutions. I'm Loukas Antoniou, Wargaming's Group Treasurer, and I'm joined today by three distinguished guests, each representing a key facet of this evolving landscape. So I would like to welcome and thank Demetris Nikolaou, Chief Digital Officer of Bank of Cyprus, Ugne Bureciene. Almost, okay.
Good enough.
Group Chief Executive Officer of payabl, Elena Yost, Market Intelligence and Business Development from LGT Bank. So, Demetri, I think we can start right off with you. How do you perceive the evolving role of local banks in our community, especially in relation to the growing tech industry in Cyprus?
So, looking back, the Bank of Cyprus has been around for more than a century. We're a 124-year-old bank, long history, the largest systemic bank in the island. Ultimately, we consider it our role to support both the country, the community, and the developing technology ecosystem that's coming up. Without wanting to elaborate for too long, on one hand, we've taken steps ourselves, both on a corporate and social responsibility front, to fund a number of national initiatives like the Oncology Center in Cyprus, in Nicosia, or Support CY, which is supporting national emergencies. But closer to the technology front, we've established the Idea Innovation Center a few years ago to support local startups and help them grow. Ultimately, in the same way, more recently, we've established our own startup, the Genius, which aims to support and facilitate interactions between local businesses and effectively promote digitalization. And we are doing this at a very low cost to the local ecosystem, because we see it as our role and our responsibility to help not just the technology sector, but the whole of the island become more digital. I'm sure we're going to have a chat to talk about collaborations in the future, but certainly helping develop the ecosystem and collaborate with the ecosystem is key, both for us and the economy. So it's definitely an area we'll be working towards and helping facilitate.
Fully agree. Elena, you come from an international bank. How is done there?
Can you hear me? Yeah, you can. So, coming to the international banks. Well, I think forward-thinking international banks recognize the vast potential from collaboration with fintech disruptors. Ever since fintech evolved as a new market player which came in to revolutionize the traditional ways banks handle money or offer services, ever since there's been a practical shift in perceiving such fintech companies by international banks as competitors toward actually trying to collaborate with them. So maybe in the beginning, some larger, well-established traditional financial institutions would tend to ignore or dismiss the trend, but it's clear that today fintechs are seen as positive disruptors, challenging the traditional financial system, being more efficient, more user-friendly, being less costly for the end consumer, democratizing access to the financial industry, meaning having a broader client reach in comparison to traditional financial institutions. So that kind of pushes the international banks to change their approach and to try to seek for cooperation with them, because such cooperation creates mutual benefits for all the parties involved, combining the the operational scale, established regulatory processes, reputation of a traditional financial institution with agility and innovation of a fintech startup.
Good. So having just heard from traditional financial institutions, I think naturally we can move to Ugne. What advantages do fintech firms have in terms of agility and innovation when they are addressing the evolving needs now of customers and consumers?
Okay, where do I start? Can you hear me now? Yeah, here we go. I said, where do we start? There's a lot of things, and I think I will also follow through sort of few notes that the governor made in terms of why fintechs are successful, because our core, let's say, mindset is that we focus on the technology, right? Which for large financial institutions and traditional banks is kind of was never really the, they were born not at the times where technology was the main, let's say, priority. And in order to service modern clients, modern merchants, modern companies that that operate, today, you obviously need the technology to follow and to follow fast these clients, right? And also if you look at who our clients are also clients are tech savvy, modern businesses who require things that did not exist, way back when. Having said that, so yes, technology is very important, and this is where we definitely compete. Obviously, we at Payabl can do things much faster than any traditional bank, and if I want to introduce something that's a given that, for me, it takes weeks. It doesn't take years. So that's part of the benefit for sure. But from the other side, I mean, there was a lot of discussion already on our stage as well in money and the new tech. The point is that every player has its space and reason for being in that, ecosystem. And I think the banks should focus, my honest opinion, that apart from the benefit that we have, that the banks should really kind of focus on their role in where they are in this ecosystem, and leave us to do all of the exciting things for the clients. So that's kind of my humble opinion.
Okay, touching on what Ugne said and talking about innovation in banking, is this something other GT is doing or any other banks are doing globally? Elena?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe just to jump in on this one. So. When I was talking about the ways banks seek for cooperation with fintechs in the beginning, I mean, I can give several examples of that. As I said, like one way to cooperate between bank and fintech is to create strategic partnerships, and we can observe that more and more international banks, including the LGT, are now stepping and into such type of strategic partnerships with fintechs. There are many new tools banks try to deploy also internally within their own kind of ecosystem infrastructure. I mean, even thinking about artificial intelligence, I mean, more and more Swiss banks, for instance, are trying to deploy such tools, generative AI, in their banking business day to day. I mean, mainly for low-risk tasks for the moment, such as sales, marketing, maybe some customers operation, maybe even for internal purposes. But there are also GPT chats available out there in the market, which have been tailored specifically for banking needs. For instance, there is this American startup Casisto, which came up with its own large language model, similar to the one GPT chat is based on, but which has been tailored to the bank, to the needs of a banking institution. And if you actually go to their website, you can see that a lot of known international banks have already been partnering with Casisto, have already been actually deploying this tool in their systems. Another example of international banks going down that path would be maybe with regard to blockchain solutions. So Onyx by JP Morgan has developed several blockchain applications which now enable them quicker payment processing system and also more controlled and more efficient peer-to-peer data transfer. And again, if you look at actually how fast this ecosystem is growing, there are already about 300 participants on this blockchain. So this is also one of the examples. Well, I should probably talk about a little bit LGT here as well. When I mention also other international banks, I mean, within LGT, it's a good example also of a very traditional bank, like traditional financial institution, We're 100 years old. We're owned by the princely family of Liechtenstein, so we probably cannot be more traditional than that. We're focused for decades on catering to the needs of private, wealthy clients. But nonetheless, innovation is also very, very much in the focus of LGT right now. And last year, the company has launched a truly massive digitalization program, which is called the Lighthouse, which foresees basically a combination of truly unique client experience, coming back to what Ugne said before. I mean, in the end, it all can be broken down to how you compete in the market to serve your end customers in the best way. We have also launched a digital hub in Barcelona, which with own accelerator and incubator center there, which foresees an investment of another 200 million Swiss francs in the coming years. So a lot is happening with this regard across the international banks as well, I would say.
Thank you, Elena. So, Demetris, it seems that international banks are investing heavily in technology. What are the initiatives Bank of Cyprus has undertaken to bridge the gap between traditional banking and the tech sector? And how are you guys ensuring that tech companies, local tech companies, have the tools, service levels, and products they need to operate and grow?
So this opens up two dimensions, I think. On one hand, you have the so-called traditional banking products, if you want. What we've been doing recently, we established what we've called the Tech Hub, which is effectively a unit within our international business division who has acquired specialization in order to build, to support and facilitate international tech companies, but tech companies in general, with their day-to-day operations, so we can help them get the best banking experience that suits them. Beyond that, though, there's an element of a technology company will have more technology advanced requirements, if you want. In that regard, a number of years ago, we established our API ecosystem, which we've been building and expanding as the years have gone by. And more recently, we've been building the Genius API ecosystem, which brings a lot more capabilities to companies in order to facilitate anything from payments to invoices to tenders, and help them digitize with all those capabilities. Ultimately, though, what we want to do is help the ecosystem. Like one of the things we're doing, we'll be doing in a couple of weeks, is our own hackathon, which is the fourth annual one we'll be doing this year, which aims to help support the local ecosystem, the local startups, to understand the offering we've got. We'll be giving out a few prizes and all that, in order to help them get the best out of what we can offer, but also get as much feedback as we can in terms of what we could be doing differently and better.
Thank you, Demetris. It seems that traditional banks are pushing to innovate. So the other day I was reading that Citibank announced a token service, essentially transforming customer deposits into digital tokens that can be instantly sent anywhere in the world. Moving to you, Ugne, what emerging trends and technologies do you believe will have the greatest impact on the fintech industry?
Sure. Before I cover that, I also want to come back to the previous question slightly, because we focus a lot on technology, with traditional banks versus the modern fintech companies. Another big difference also between us, I think, that there is intention from the old school, banking institutions to innovate. But I think where we do also really well is that we really understand the modern businesses, and I think this is where the banks are still lacking. So they do want the businesses, and I think it's a very good example in Cyprus. We talk about the fact that yes, we want the tech companies, we want all of but the acceptance policy of the clients is completely different in the banks, right? So the story is that there is a little bit of a controversy in all around. So I think this is where we as companies do really well, and where we service these clients better. Coming back to the technology, I think there's from the technology perspective, of course, all eyes on AI. So for us as a financial service provider and a technology company, there is ways how we can use AI. So we're looking into that at the moment. Definitely for improvement of integrations for developers and sort of moving into this simplification, let's say, of integrations, which is another step for us servicing global, merchants and clients who want to basically integrate fast and do things. So AI can be used to simplify the development as well, which is really cool thing. So we're looking into ways of how to incorporate that into our integrations and basically our technology and what we offer, to the merchant. And another sort of I wouldn't say really technology, but more of the trend is embedded finance, which we also discussed in our other stages. That because the actual concept of embedded finance is very old, right? So like this, the fundamentals are all the same and actually provided also by traditional banks or non-traditional banks. But the ways the products are built using incorporated embedded finance is getting more and more innovative. And this is sort of the thing that I'm really looking forward to see. So how of these services, traditional core services like, cards, like banking, all of this, is utilized to create, these products in the future. And small thing that I forgot also to mention for AI, there's a lot of application for AI, but let's say specifically for our industry. As I mentioned, we're looking into simplification of our APIs, which is important. And another way also that it can be utilized is for monitoring transactions and certain patterns and things like that. But there's a lot of debate and also issues in terms of the regulatory aspect as well. So we have to be kind of a little more careful, let's say, how we look. But I'm really looking forward to both advancements in technology and in the fact that, what the industry will build in the future in terms of products.
Thank you. So indeed, technology has a profound impact on
Absolutely.
the fintech industry. And we are living in an age marked by technological advancements and a growing tech industry, both internationally, but most importantly for us in Cyprus, locally. So in what ways, Demetris, do you envision local banks and local tech companies working together to foster growth, not for the business only themselves, but for the wider community? So Ugne talked about, local traditional banks not understanding the business needs, not being there up to speed. So what is your view?
I think that's an old school view, if I may say so.
I hope.
I think, particularly in the last few years, actually, I may call myself a traditional banker, but I've only been working at the bank for 5 years. When I was joining the bank, I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to go to the bank and what am I going to find? What am I getting myself into? Ultimately, there's a lot of desire from the banks to become different, to become better, to innovate and do things differently. But there's a lot of, no matter how we do it, there's a lot of baggage, whether that comes from regulation, legacy systems, or old mentalities, if you want. Having said that, though, a lot has been done to change that. Like, if you talk to a bank 5 years ago, and you asked, okay, would you be willing to collaborate with a fintech? They were like, no, don't touch that. Nowadays, things are very different. We have, I speak with my CEO almost every week or every other week about collaborations that we're doing. We've already done 10, 11 collaborations on the Genius side about how we can bring Genius APIs closer to the customers, make it cheaper, easier for that to happen. And what we want to be doing is a lot more of that, because we realize that as a bank, we cannot do everything. We don't want to do everything. And there's definitely room both for the banks, the fintechs, and the general technology ecosystem to collaborate together, come together and find ways that ultimately will help the customer. And it doesn't necessarily need to be that one single player needs to control everything. Ultimately, some key players will come out and will lead the way, and then I expect that the world will follow, whether that is the local ecosystems or even the European or global ecosystems. And it's all about embracing the need for collaboration, realizing that there are specific segments, specific niches where some companies may be able to work better, and then extracting the best out of every company you're collaborating with in order to have a better product.
Great. Ugne, I don't know if you want to chip into that in terms of collaborating and how agile you are in terms of, amending your roadmaps, developing new features that customers are requesting from you.
Sure. Look, first of all, as I mentioned, that the whole ecosystem, the way that it exists, it cannot exist without banks, right? So even if we say that we're facilitating, cross-border payments, I have correspondent banks, in the chain that I will still, connect to. So there is a role for every player in our, let's say, infrastructure and the way that that we operate. Do I agree that the banks are doing enough in Cyprus? Okay, maybe that's a discussion we will leave for further. But I think it's to invest in technology is great, but if you don't have the application for what you're doing and you're basically not assessing the clients well enough, and you don't understand what the clients really require, and you cannot do a proper assessment, or your acceptance policy don't follow that, then that's a bit of a tricky situation. But I know that that there's a lot of effort also from TechIsland side to lobby for that, and also that that our sector in general is better looked after. But I can tell you, even as a fintech of our own, born and bred in Cyprus, our experience with traditional banks is very poor. We had to look outside for collaborations, for doing things, because we could not be serviced in Cyprus. So I'm happy to hear that the banks are looking into sort of expanding their horizon and realizing that we're not some challengers for their own business, but we actually can collaborate. And we are here to stay in any case, because we do have our part. So I think the sooner that collaboration really becomes fruitful, the better it is. But I think it's still a long way to go. But it's good to hear that that some progression is already made towards that. And as I said, the payments infrastructure in general is very, very, very complex. If you look at cross-border payments, you look card transactions, you look anything that you think where money is involved, it's a very, very complicated infrastructure from the technology perspective, from the regulatory framework, from all of the layers that I have in between. When you make the card transaction, you never really think what happens behind. There's a lot of things that happen in one split second that you have the payment approved. So for someone like us, to be also more competitive, we also need help from the traditional banks to facilitate us to do that. And also, if they do facilitate us to do that, then that means that we can grow and they can grow together with us. So ultimately, for collaboration, and ultimately for traditional banks, looking more deeper in collaborations, with fintech companies like ourselves.
Thank you. So collaborations are indeed important, and TechIsland wants to bring together local banks
Absolutely.
and local tech companies to help them understand these new business models, and also hopefully help them, adapt, progress, and at the end of the day, better serve us as tech companies.
Exactly, and I'm sorry, I will just sort of blow on my own trumpet, but we've been in the business just, servicing these type of clients. So, I know exactly my type of client. I know exactly what those companies do. I know the technology behind. I know how to service, because I've been through all of that growth. And from the banking sector, it's kind of like, oh, this became significant enough, so now we really have to look into it. So that's kind of the key difference. But I think from collaborative perspective, that's where we should join together, and also that we should be looked into as helpers in a way, also for the traditional banking, to say, look guys, we know these industries, we can help you assess, we can also help you to understand, and also to rely on us that we know how to do that and how we do the due diligence also on our end.
Thank you. So, traditional banking, technology, innovation. Elena, how do you foresee the evolving landscape in traditional banking? Will traditional banks go and acquire fintech companies? Will they try to foster internally the innovation they need, or perhaps a combination of both?
Thank you. Well, I should say, to me, it's clear that any traditional bank which wishes to further maintain market position tomorrow should find a way to integrate technology one way or another into their businesses today, right? And whether it's going to be achieved through acquisitions of fintechs, or through the path of own kind of digital journey, transformation, innovation management, and so on, it's hard to say, but I think we equally see both trends. And in a way, I think I believe that this symbiosis between fintech and banking, traditional banking, actually has higher survival, higher success chances in the future. So this is why, for instance, again, coming back to JPM example I made before, this is why whilst they develop their own blockchain solutions and really trying to kind of pioneer among the banks on that path, they nonetheless outsource and partner, for instance, with Roostify to streamline their lending business, right? The same goes for LGT. Whereas we massively invest into internal transformation, digitalization processes, we also acquired a couple of years ago a strategic minority stake in a Germany-based digital bank, Liquid, which is, by the way, also maybe coming back to what Ugne was talking before about. I think this type of partnership is actually mutually beneficial for both. So it's not only banks, right, who gain from such partnership, but also the fintech startups, because even on the example of Liquid, I can say that after that acquisition, the bank extended its year-long investment advisory expertise service to the clientele of Liquid. So Liquid clearly also benefited from that exchange. But in return, obviously, the bank gained additional client segment and most importantly, experience in digital space, right? So it's really about recognizing that that type of cooperation creates mutual benefits for both parties. And I think in the future, successful symbiosis of both has probably higher chances to be kind of in the lead of transforming financial industry. And maybe I just wanted to jump in to add a few words to the pain point here related to this whole. No, I think it's a very important topic. Remembering, talking here now from a bank's point of view, that fintechs, generally tech companies, are obviously not only our external partners or the companies we may provide, investments for, but they are also our clientele, generally of banks, whether Cypriot banks, international banks, and as Ugne rightly said before, you cannot succeed long-term just by having fancy tools, right, and kind of trying to, replicate what your competitor does. I think it requires a major cultural quality shift and firm commitment within the bank's organization to such a change, right? So thinking about tech companies as clientele of the bank, it does require a lot of change. It does require maybe some, educational processes for all the bank's employees, right, from the sales to compliance people, to actually understand that there are new source of wealth, source of income kind of evolving in the industry, which didn't exist 10, 20 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, because simply this type of services didn't exist. But they are becoming more and more popular now, right? So you have to really constantly educate yourself on what's happening in the tech industry, and it does require constant dialogue, right? And I think there are many ways how you can facilitate it, by doing events like here today, by keeping contacts to between tech and business, doing case studies, educational programs, maybe collective workshops and stuff like this. It's very, very important to continue also with this kind of mind shift in order to be successful tomorrow. So.
No, I totally agree. There's really not much to add.
Okay, good. So,
to be honest, I would echo what Elena said. It's actually, I've had a very interesting time to observing the shift in mindset of people and how we've had to educate the teams to get out of the mode of our customers are gonna tell us what they want, and eventually we'll do it. We need to understand the customers better. We need to be able to predict what they will want in a few years' time, because ultimately things don't get built overnight. So, and if a customer turns around and says, "I want this in 6 months' time, and I want it in 2 weeks," you cannot go build it from scratch. You need to have at least the foundations in order to evolve what you have, in order to meet the customer's needs. So that evolution of skills, of capabilities, has been necessary. I think at the bank we've made a lot of changes. I think there's a lot of more that we need to do in order to be truly there and indeed deliver top-notch customer experience for everybody, whether that is the individuals, the small companies, the big companies, or the multinationals. But we are definitely committed to doing so and getting there.
Dimitri, touching on the question I had for Elena, what is the plan for Bank of Cyprus?
In terms of?
Fostering internally the innovation, or are you in the lookout, for?
Ultimately, we would embrace both. We welcome both. As in, I think there's room either to go acquire or to collaborate. I don't think there is a single recipe for any given that applies across the board. Rather, we continuously evaluate. Definitely, the collaborations are the way to go, and this is what we found in the last few years, that it's where the economy is going, is where the world is going. So this is what has worked most of the times for us. But definitely everything's on the table. But overall, if I maybe take a step back, we want to continue investing, and whether that is doing things ourselves, doing things with partners, or acquiring technology. The only thing that's certain, I would say, is the continued investment.
Thank you. So, no one can disagree that technology has a profound impact on the financial sector. On the other hand, we are seeing that the regulatory environments often can affect innovation. So, Ugne, how do you navigate the regulatory landscape while continuing to drive innovation and growth in your products and services?
Sure, it's a very good question. I always would like to say that we're a tech company first, but actually we are a financial service provider first, because regulation comes first in everything that we do, and it's a paramount base for security for our clients and for our services that we provide. So you have to live with it, and you have to basically make the best out of. So the way that we see it in payabl is that we look at the regulation as opportunity. And that doesn't definitely stifle, our growth in any way. Of course, in some cases, you have to retract and kind of, rethink and, regroup in terms of, how you deliver certain things. But our mindset is that, yes, the tech is there, but, every single thing that we do is compliant. It's regulation, soundproof, because ultimately the idea is that, as a payment service provider, you want to provide services that, that suit your clients, but they're also secure, and you deliver them in the most safest of ways. So this is how we see it, and this is how we collaborate, let's say, with teams and how we grow, let's say, the company in terms of constraints from the regulation, but also not making it really a constraint. We just basically have to live with it, deal with it, and not, kind of get stuck on what it requires us to do.
Thank you. So as we move to a close, can I please ask you to share one last message for participants here in this hot day, and also in the wider business and tech community in Cyprus? Dimitri?
I think if I was to leave with one message, I would say at the bank we're definitely committed towards investing in technology, towards developing our digital skills, our digital products, working with our customers, and ultimately we want to understand them better, collaborate with them, whether that is through a strategic partnership, an agreement, as Elena mentioned earlier, or any other type of collaboration. We're definitely open and willing to that, and we are actively exploring those kind of collaborations and opportunities. So if anyone wants to have a chat, we're here.
Elena?
Thank you. Well, first I want to say, as an LGT private banking representative, it's not very common to be here in this format, and it's been a privilege to be among the invitees also for this panel discussion, and for that I thank you very much again, TechIsland, for our invitation and for existing cooperation we have. It's also great to be in Cyprus. I personally love Cyprus a lot, and it's truly pleasant to see how it's evolving more and more as a European hub for fintech, for IT innovation. So I sincerely wish you all to further evolve in this sphere. And as we talked before, collaboration between banking and tech is essential, and it's mutually beneficial for both. So with this in mind, we are very much looking forward to cooperation. Thank you.
Ugne?
Sure. So I think foremost, really, I am very thankful for TechIsland. Since TechIsland really takes care and sort of looks forward to what the companies need in Cyprus. And I think the initiative, in general, to speak about, certain topics and, bring attention, from the right, kind of people, I think it's very important. The industry in general, as fintech, has a huge growth, and I think it's very important that Cyprus really looks into that more and takes care of its participants and the companies that are homegrown actually here. And there are very many examples across, Europe, and not only Europe, how much of the fintech and tech is really can contribute, for economy, and we're already seeing that in Cyprus anyway. So my kind of wish is that thank you first foremost, and the second is kind of the wish that that the attention would not fade away, and that we would continue talking about these things, and hopefully these discussions will lead to collaborations and to more confidence in the traditional banks, in us as fintechs. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, guys, for joining us today. Many thanks to everyone, and wishing you a productive rest of the day.